Mike Florio, he's the editor of ProFootballTalk.com. He joins us now. This whole leaked Josh Freeman story, it just feels there's something going on here. Is it a smear campaign? What's going on with Freeman here in Tampa?
Well, and the reaction, Dan, has been, why would the Buccaneers try to smear a guy that they're trying to trade? And the smear started back when word first emerged that there was concern about the legitimacy of the vote for captain. That's when some believe the team started to get some negative facts out there that would explain why guys didn't vote for Josh Freeman. For example, he missed a team photo. Nobody knew about that until after it started to come out that there was a players-only meeting that included these concerns about whether or not the votes were counted accurately. So the theory is the team decided at that point we better throw a little dirt on this guy, and I think it took on a life of its own.
How did this get to this point so quickly?
I think that Josh Freeman really wants out of Tampa. Tampa doesn't have much leverage here. They can't find a trade partner. So Josh Freeman and his agents apparently have come up with a way to just keep putting pressure and keep needling and keep distracting the head coach. And this is a guy who says over and over again, if you're distracted, you're already defeated. And I think the smart thing for the Buccaneers to do at this point, cut him loose, pay the rest of his salary for the year. They're already on the hook for it anyway, and just move on. Get him out of the organization. But I don't think the Buccaneers want to give Freeman his way.
Can you trade him for maybe a player that somebody else wants to get rid of? So it's almost like let's try to mix and match salaries here.
Well, you could, but still you're bringing in a guy that currently isn't on your team, and you have to ask yourself, what do we do with him? Do we bench our starting quarterback? Are we paying this guy $6.44 million over the rest of the season so we can just see how he is in practice, whether he's a good guy, whether he's a jerk, whether he works hard, whatever? It's a lot of a commitment to make, and it's a distraction to bring to your team. I mean, if you've already got a guy in your roster that you're paying a lot of money to, but he's not causing trouble, then he's just there. You just deal with it. You bring in Freeman, and you may be welcoming a distraction because this story isn't going to go away. It's going to follow Freeman wherever he goes for the rest of the season.
Okay, Tennessee needs somebody in there for Jake Locker. Is that a possibility? Or, I mean, is anybody desperate enough right now in the moment where they need or they'd take a chance on Josh Freeman?
I don't think so, Dan, because how do you plug a quarterback into a new system? You'd have to find somebody who runs the exact same offense to make it a seamless transition. Ryan Fitzpatrick's been there since the start of the offseason program. They won 38-13. Now, Jake Locker got hurt in the third quarter, so maybe it would have been different if he'd gotten hurt in the first quarter. But I think teams have their guys in place. The philosophy is next man up. And the other side of this, too, is what if Josh Freeman doesn't want to go to Tennessee? I think Josh Freeman could put some demands out there. For example, something like, look, I want a long-term commitment from whoever trades for me, scares the team away, deal falls apart.
What did he test positive for?
Well, he issued a statement last night that he had a prescription for Adderall and a therapeutic use exemption for Adderall. You need to have both in order to take it. And at some point he took Ritalin accidentally instead of Adderall, tested positive for Ritalin, and the end result was he agreed to be tested as many times as the NFL wanted to prove that he's clean. So his belief, if you read between the lines of his statement, he was giving the samples at the facility. He believes someone at the facility noticed he was constantly being drug tested and began to question whether or not he has a drug problem, and that seems to be the root of the problem that we now have.
Talking to Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com. This Matt Schaub situation in Texas is starting to escalate a little bit. Not that TJH is their savior, but Schaub at his age, I think he's 32. You either have it or you don't by this age, right?
Oh, you're right. Scott Pioli said that last night on our show on NBCSN that guys keep banging against the ceiling and they don't bust through the ceiling. Same thing with Tony Romo. At a certain point, you just are who you are. You're not going to get better because somebody gives you a big contract or says, I want you to be more like Peyton Manning. You are who you are. This is who Matt Schaub is. Last year when he was in his contract year with the Texans, after one game, they gave him this huge extension, made him the sixth highest paid quarterback in the NFL. What's he done to deserve it? Since they were 11-1 last year, he's fallen apart, the team's fallen apart, and now it looks like they at least are going to consider their options after the season. But, you know, we hear the same thing we heard last week about Josh Freeman. Matt Schaub's our quarterback, and most teams, the attitude is, yeah, we support this guy unequivocally and unconditionally until we decide we don't support him anymore.
Well, that's where Greg Schiano looked foolish, where I'm 100% behind Josh Freeman, I think, on Tuesday, and then Wednesday, all of a sudden, he's ready to kick him to the curb.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. We've seen Jerry Jones do that with guys like Wade Phillips and Terrell Owens. You support your guy because you don't want to do anything to undermine him, and then when you decide he's no longer your guy, that's it. Kick him to the curb. And you're right. The guy who handles it that way ends up looking foolish.
Chargers-Raiders time change because of the Raiders. So this is going to be 11:30 Pacific time?
11:30 Eastern, 8:30 Pacific.
Okay.
I think the NFL may have discovered plutonium by accident here. Why not hold a game until 8:30 p.m. West Coast local time? You put it on NFL Network. You sell it to one of the cable networks. You got late night football on the East Coast, primetime football on the West Coast. I think if this works, we've found yet another window into which we can cram more football. And I'm only partially kidding.
So a West Coast primetime game.
Yeah, 8:30 p.m. West Coast time, 11:30 p.m. East Coast time. Now, they already do it with that first Monday night game where they start the early game at 7 and the late game at 10. But this is the first time a game's ever started this late, and, it's going to be going until 2:30 in the morning East Coast time.
No other solution with that?
Well, no, other than flipping home games, which the NFL decided not to do, where the Chargers would have hosted this one and the Raiders would have hosted the one later in the season. One of the things you can do with division rivals who play twice a year, but that option got scuttled a couple of weeks ago.
Good stuff. Thank you, Mike.
All right, buddy. Good talking to you.
Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.